much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. You guys know what I like to do on my show. Say it with me. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And that's what we want to do today. We want to get you fired up about my guest. I'll be spending time with Daniel Hernandez today, and we're talking about his book, A Teen's Guide to Surviving Juvenile Hall. So go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Hello, Daniel. Thank you so much for joining me here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Hello. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, as is tradition around here on the show, we always ask our guests to tell us a little bit about themselves. There may be some folks out there that are unfamiliar with you or your work. So first question, what makes you you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Grew up in Southern California, worked for the probation department, Orange County Probation Department, for about 18 years. And once I retired, I decided to write a book.
Now, being an author, is that something that you've always wanted? Is something that you've always wanted to do? Or did you find that this was simply the best way to get your information to the public?
This was more of a COVID thing, to tell you the truth. Once I retired, I was working for a nonprofit, and I had gotten laid off from that nonprofit due to COVID. And I still felt that I had a lot to teach the youth that I was working with. So I had time, so I wrote the book.
I'm finding that a lot of people were able to use the time away from the usual 9 to 5 type task or the rat race of life the way that we had it in our old normal, that they were really able to be constructive during that time to really create some things. So I see that you were able to do that as well. That's awesome. Now, you are not the first author that took advantage of that, and I think that is a blessing to be able to be creative during that time. Now, when it comes to the proper age group, a lot of times people will say, okay, it says a teen's guide. So are we talking as young as 13, or should we think a little bit older, perhaps 15 or 16, or does it matter?
I would go a little bit younger than that, as young as 10. In my personal experiences working in the corrections facility, we've had 10, 11-year-olds in custody.
Oh, wow. Okay. You know, I don't think that people know that, or that they think about that. You know, I know that I would be a person that would think, okay, someone is a juvenile is in custody, they're probably like a high schooler, or they might be in 8th grade, you know, an older junior high student, but not that young. Thank you for clarifying that. Now, for many authors, they will write their book in a particular way that really helps the reader understand what is being presented. The suggestion may be read the book from cover to cover, simply page after page, however you want to read it, pick it up, start anywhere. Others will say, nope, you definitely need to read chapter 1 or section 1 before moving on. Is there any particular way that's the best way to read your book in order to really utilize the information that you're sharing with us?
No. The book is written more to just jump anywhere you want to. Each chapter has different skill sets that you could learn from, and then you could, if you're struggling with that skill set, then like, for example, if you don't know how to do respect, communicate, things like that, and then you could check that chapter out and look at it.
I like that. Now, not that there's anything wrong with the other ways that books are written, but I really do like when there's a particular subject matter, because like you said, someone may be just having a particular issue or concern or want to dig a little deeper on a particular portion, and to make that available, I think is really smart. Because sometimes that can be a deterrent. Like, I don't want to read the whole book. I just want to find out about this part. So I love that you have done that. Now, for some folks, and you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, in that you wanted to write this book and share the information you garnered along the way. But was there a particular nudge that you received? Some of the authors that I talked to say that, 3 or 4 people will ask, when is the book going to be ready? Like, have you started writing the book yet? Or they feel as though God kind of comes to them in a dream, or they have a dream where they're, winning an award or whatever it is, right? Did you feel that you were nudged, or that there was a prompting in your world that made you say, yeah, now is the time? COVID was the exact the timing, but do you feel that you had a particular push that said start today?
Not a particular push. I had really no intention of ever writing a book at any time. I figured that I really didn't have anything to say. And then once I found myself with a lot of free time on my hands, and I prayed about, a direction God would to take me to, and next thing I know, I had this outline of a book, and I was like, well, let me just write the outline. It may go nowhere. So then I just started writing, and it just kind of poured out of me.
Now, when you were putting that outline together, I'm pretty sure that you could give your own seminar on this, that you could really fill us with lots of information of things that we needed to know. So how were you able to decide which topics or which aspects of it all that you wanted to share in the book? What was that process like?
That is a very good question. That was probably one of the most difficult parts to do. I have read a good deal of self-help books. This is like a self-help book. And I really wanted to convey, because a lot of self-help books tell you what not to do. Don't do this, avoid this, but not really like what to do. So the book has usually about 3 steps on, if you're uncertain, do step 1, do step 2, do step 3. So I really wanted to focus on that aspect of it, but just kind of really digging deep on what I was remembering the staff having difficulty with when they're dealing with their juveniles. And these are the 10 most common topics that staff would complain about their youth having difficult following. So that's why I came up with those 10 chapters.
And as you were saying that, I was sitting there thinking, I'm going, you know what, I think he's right. Usually it is, don't do this and don't do that, right? And they give an explanation as to why you should not do that. But you're right, many times it is not the do this instead. It's just what not to do as opposed to what to do. That's an interesting observation there. I love it. Now, when you were in the process of writing, did you find that you needed a particular environment? I know many people will say that they missed kind of the pre-COVID, in that they used to like to go to their local coffee house and take their laptop, and they were right that way, that the hustle and bustle or the noise that people make, just the comings and going, were a pleasant white noise for them. Other folks said, no, Dr. Angela, I want to go, to the cabin in the woods. I need it to be uber quiet so I can hear myself think. Did you find that you needed a particular environment, or that you were more creative at a particular time of the day than any other?
Usually I do some writing on my own, and not just books, but I do some other writing, and I find being outside more helpful. But due to COVID, when I was writing the book, everything was shut down, so I was really kind of limited just to my house.
That is so true. I'm finding that for so many folks that thank God for the internet, that you were able to try to create some of that atmosphere, some of that environment. As a therapist, I know that for a lot of folks, they said that was the one thing that was missing, that they were able to be productive from home, but they found that they missed the noise of the office, the machines and the phones ringing and, just people passing by. And it's like absolutely adjusting to the new sound and being okay in that new sound. I'm sure someone has millions of hits now just because they have, office sounds as one of the videos available. I love it. I love it. Now, when it came to the time to publish your book, every author has to decide how they're going to do that. I like to say that there are three options. There's self-publishing. There's using professional services, like actually hiring someone to walk you through the process to do it all for you. Or did you pitch your book to the big boys, the ones that are going to be able to give you the check for the advance and all of that? What was your hope or dream when it came to publishing your book?
That is a good question. I did know nothing about publishing. My field of expertise is not writing. So this was all new to me. I actually went with a service that actually helped me and kind of had people walk me through the process of, what entails, what's, the best way to go about, my book after the manuscript was completed. And I found it very enlightening and somewhat frustrating, but the whole entire process was definitely an eye-opener for me.
It's really interesting that I find that most people that I have been able to spend some time with, they have either used professional services or they have self-published. And I'm finding that more and more people realize that they can still have the experience of being an author, of still getting their work out there without having to go through having an agent and having that agent pitch, the larger publishing companies and all of that, and all of the time and expense that it takes to do that. So I'm glad that you had a positive experience. Yeah, because you don't know certain things until you need to know those things. So I can definitely understand that. Now, when you finally held copy number 1 of this book in your hands, how did you feel, Daniel, in that moment?
Oh, I was probably more than excited because, again, my field was corrections, law enforcement, and, not until months prior to that, I had no intention of ever writing a book. So to actually hold, something that I've created in my hand was kind of surreal.
Absolutely. And I love that every author, well, maybe let me not be that extreme. 99% of the authors that I have spoken with all say the same thing. It's like, I can't believe it, like, finally, that it's almost like, not that your human kids are less important than your book or anything like that, but it's like my first child, or rescuing a dog, or it's up there. And it's like, absolutely, it is up there because it is your creativity finally in tangible form. So I love that. Well, Daniel, it is almost time for us to go to break, so I want to just pause for a moment right here and ask you, can you remind everyone, please, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And of course, how do we stay in contact with you?
The title of my book is A Teen's Guide to Surviving Juvenile Hall. It's available on Amazon or anywhere books are sold. And you could get in touch with me on Facebook, Daniel Hernandez.
Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Sparkler, Dr. Angela. My guest today is Daniel Hernandez, and we're talking about his book, A Teen's Guide to Surviving Juvenile Hall. So, Daniel, my next question for you isn't really about your book. It's about being a correctional officer in a juvenile hall. most people or many people may never come into contact with someone who has a direct impact on our youth in such a capacity. What was it like? And everyone knows that I have brothers, my son, all of that are in law enforcement, so I have a particular understanding of what that means. But can you explain to folks that may not have that law enforcement person in their family, what was it like to hold that office, to do your job?
Yes, I spent approximately 6 months at Juvenile Hall. Majority of my time was at a juvenile camp up in the mountains, which is a little different dynamics, which made it, there was no cells, there's no locked doors. So basically I had to strictly deal with behaviors. So if a kid was acting up or causing problems, it was up to me to, help him, look for signs of serious, problems, behaviors, before they escalated, into something bad, fight, escape, something like that. So I really had to learn quick.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, for so many folks, when they think of juveniles being in a detained type situation, either folks think of adult uh, jail just with young people in it, or they think more of kind of like a camp where the kids are just like stuck in summer camp for however long they've been sentenced, right? Is one place more correct than another, or does it really depend on where you live as far as the type of facility that a juvenile will be sentenced to?
Going back to the previous corrections model that they used on how to determine what is the best course of action for kids, but the facility itself kind of dictated the counseling model that was used. Since there was no cells and everything was just bunk beds and room, you really had to focus on, I mean, it was a work camp, but it wasn't like you're forced to do work, because it is prone to fires and flooding. And we were evacuated due to fires, so a lot of road maintenance, weed abatement, stuff like that, and sandbagging of the roads, because again, the staff were isolated due to closures of the road for flooding. So they do a lot of maintaining of the road just for their own safety. Both of them work well for certain situations. There is programming, a lot of cognitive work on behaviors. Juvenile Hall does have therapists. If somebody is acting up or is having some mental health issues going on, they have the opportunity to speak to therapists. They do. Both facilities do have religious service. They try to accommodate for everybody. So there's just a lot of activities to keep the kids busy, free time, working out. Certain things are required by law, and other things, some staff come up just to do their best to help them not come back once they get released.
And I'm so glad that you said that, because that was going to be my comment, that it sounds like they're really trying to do as much as they possibly can to make sure that, of course, the children serve their time there, but that it's productive time, if you will, that they're able to look at what's really going on and how can we keep you from being that repeat offender. So that's awesome. So I'm really glad to know that all of that is being made available to help out the youth there. That's good news. Now, I want to switch a little bit back to your book and ask you, there's always that person out there that no matter how much good news you give to them, they're always going to say, but I don't know. So I want to ask a question on their behalf, and that is, there are plenty of books out there that talk about this subject matter. What makes your book so special? So I want to give you an opportunity to describe what makes your book a little bit more unique or different than some of the other books that are out there.
Yes, that is a wonderful question. It would be, I do have, I guess, the format of the book, because it does have tips on what you should do in certain aspects, certain parts of the book. There is a few chapters of actual examples. So one of the chapters is called communication. And I give a real life example, something that actually happened to me at the camp, that discusses, why communication is so important. And then I go to more of the clinical, or if you don't know how to communicate, these are helpful tips on, modeling communication and what you should do in order to do that. So it does have real life examples of things that I've experienced, things that happened to me in my 18 years, and how I went about and why I developed the tips on what I felt was successful that worked with those kids to help them improve themselves.
Mm-hmm. Now, would you say your book is as equally helpful to the parents or the caretaker, the loved ones of the child, as much as it is actually to the juvenile that's away from home during that time?
Partially, but it is. But again, it's one of those tools that the juveniles actually would need to do it themselves. I mean, the parent can read it. Like, my son's getting in a lot of trouble, is getting kicked out of school. He should read this book. But again, it's still something that the youth will actually have to do himself. He has to do the work. He has to read the book, because again, when he's locked up, his father cannot, do the time for him. So he would actually have to be mature enough to take those steps himself.
So I see what you're saying, that they can read it if they like, but like you said, this is for the person experiencing it. This is not for the support team, and I like that, because so many times when we are reading a book that's in that self-help genre, we find that it's also just as good for the support team, for mom, dad, husband, brother, sister, whatever it is, right? That they could read it and everyone is on the same page. But this is actually for that student, for that youth, and that they are the ones who need to take responsibility and read the book. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Because I could just hear someone saying, well, I'll read it, and then I'll just tell them what to do. And what I'm hearing you say is, nope, just send them the book and let them read it for themselves. And I like that. I like that. Now, I know that the world is starting to open back up, and we are much more relaxed on many of the COVID protocols than perhaps 2 years ago, and especially a year ago even. And we may be getting back to the place where we are going to be doing in-person events, book signings, book expos, all that good stuff, speaking engagements, and all of that. And I know this is a tough question because COVID. But do you think that you would like to get out there and share about your book, perhaps in a school setting or in a church ministry, or church youth ministry, or anything like that? Is that something that you would like to do as well?
Absolutely. I've had some experience doing that before. I do have kids of my own, and once their teachers found out what I did for a living, they were more than happy to immediately have me in the classroom to get their students into shape and what is it like really in, juvenile hall. And I have a coworker that I've worked for many, many years, and him and I would do anti-bullying speaking. We help teachers, parents of high-risk kids stay out of gang, stuff like that. So I've done some speaking.
And I'm so glad to hear you say that. Perhaps there's someone that's listening to the broadcast today that may be looking for someone to fill that very capacity. So it's a good thing that you said that, because you're talking about bullying, and that especially kind of perked my ears up. I'm finding that I'm hearing more and more about not just the traditional ways of bullying, but of cyberbullying as well. That seems to really be affecting our youth today. So I'm so glad that you are talking about that, that you're touching on that, and you're hoping to give them some encouragement. Now, when it comes to the overall message for that youth that is taking the time to read the book, however they got the book, they're reading it and they really want to take it to heart. Is there one overarching message, or did you find that you've kind of sprinkled nuggets of wisdom along the way for each section, for each chapter, and that they should be sure to pick up those nuggets as they read?
Yes, each chapter is kind of like independent and on its own, but there are themes throughout. Each chapter has like historical quotes in the book, and I use that, and some of the staff I know use quotes to help emphasize certain points or certain messages, and I found that they're easier to remember, and some of the youth really do like gravitate and like it, and will like kind of hold on to it. They might not understand the message. They would probably read my book and forget about what's in it, but sometimes the quotes actually stay with them a little bit. So there are quotes that correspond with each chapter.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Maybe because I'm a quotes kind of gal, but I think that is really a way to motivate people, because, like you said, if they can remember that, then that can help them go from where they are to where they need to be. Simply every time they hear that quote or they're reminded of that quote, it's like, oh, that's my nudge to be my best self. So I like that you have done that, and you never know what's going to be that catalyst for someone to have their aha moment, right? So I'm glad that you were mindful enough that you wanted to try to do a little bit of something different, adding the quotes, to really help them figure out what works best for them. I love it. Well, Daniel Hernandez, thank you so much for spending some time with me here today on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. But before I let you go, can you remind everyone one last time, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And, of course, how do we stay in contact with you?
The title of my book is A Teen's Guide to Surviving Juvenile Hall. It's available on Amazon or anywhere where books are sold. And you can get in touch with me on Facebook at Daniel Hernandez.
Thank you again, Daniel, for being a guest on the show today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Angela.
Absolutely. And listeners, thank you for spending some time with me here today as well. You could have been anywhere, but you chose to spend it with me today, and I thank you for doing that. As always, I hope that we have enlightened, inspired, and empowered you again today. May the Lord continue to shine His face upon you. May you receive His grace and His mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.